Now, who should be allowed to get help to have kids? Well, France is currently debating whether or not to change its laws on assisted reproduction, extending the right to single women and lesbian couples, for example. Today, only infertile heterosexual couples can avail of such treatment. That is just part of a wider bill on bioethics expected to be passed this year. A hot topic, not without its controversy. And to give us his perspective, we're joined in studio by gynaecologist and reproduction expert, indeed the man who helped create France's first test tube baby, Mr René Frydman. Thanks for your time. Now, here in France, there's currently 6 months of debates going on about bioethics in reproduction in the country. You've attended a lot of those conferences, a lot of heated reactions from people. What are those against extending these rights for everyone? What are they so afraid of?
Well, it's typically French. I mean, because there is a special history, and but I know that in Europe there's also, I mean, religious position and different right to left parties, different. But in France there is something special that I cannot absolutely understand, and especially because in France contraception began also very early. The law permitted the abortion was voted a long time ago. In vitro fertilization came with a nice support at the beginning, and after that it became a little more and more difficult to progress in research, medical research and scientific research, and also in the social aspect.
It's funny that even in research things got restricted, but as you say, we're in Europe and already other countries have moved beyond that. There's even an expression, I believe, in France called Thalys babies, because there are a lot of couples, and notably homosexual couples, that take the train to Belgium in order to avail of such treatment. I believe there was something like 130 doctors that admitted in France they're helping couples. So de facto, whether or not we have the law, it's happening.
Well, now we are discussing. So the question will be, what is deleterious for somebody, for the baby, for one of the participants of the new proposition? Is it something that we have to stop or not to develop? Personally, and I'm not on the same position that my English colleague, for instance, I don't agree with the surrogate mother.
Which is illegal in France
Which is illegal in France, which is permitted since 33 years in England, in Great Britain. And why? Because I think that, of course, the desire of a baby is something very important. But if you remember, I will make some comparison. If you remember, 10 years ago, it was a team who tried to adopt African children to people in France and everywhere. And of course, for the people who were waiting for the baby, it was something very important. But they raped the baby.
They robbed the baby, yeah. That's the fear, isn't it? A baby becomes a commodity.
And become an exchange of money. And for me, the surrogate mother is something that is not exactly the same, of course, but I mean, the surrogate mother, it's an alienation of her body and her time, and it's something on the psychic so much important. And for instance, even if it's allowed in England, the majority of the couple, especially homosexual, go abroad.
So yeah, there's perhaps that case of money coming into it and exploitation. But you mentioned there the desire to have a baby and how strong that is. Nonetheless, there's increasingly people putting it off to later in life. And here in France, the idea of freezing somebody's eggs is only allowed if you need it, if medically you're going through chemotherapy or some such. But I believe that's also up for debate, and it might be
for instance, this position is not correct. Because, I mean, there is no reason to forbid a woman to freeze their egg. Where is the deleterious aspect?
I guess the question would be, is it fair on the child? Are women having everything, or couples having everything? Like, until what age is it fair for a child to have an older parent that won't be around for as long, naturally?
Will be, you know, there is a time to be father and mother, and a time to be grandmother and grandfather. So we must understand that the society and have some limit. I mean, I believe that there is some limit. We have to what kind of limit? always if there is something deleterious for the baby or for somebody else who participate.
Because naturally the limit would be shortly in their
Exactly,
early 40s.
exactly.
Is that not enough?
Exactly. That, for instance, in France, the law says that you have to be on the natural limit. So you go until 40, 50 years, I mean, maximum. There is a law. You can do...
and that won't change?
I don't think so, and I don't expect. I think it's a good position, because you have to give... For instance, you know that there is... a woman in Italy who gives birth at 70 years. I think it's not correct. I mean, you must not do something like that.
And of course, again, there's all those questions of society versus science and how much, testing, genetic testing, we should be doing on fetuses, when they're in the womb. I believe that 70%, for example, of Down syndrome cases, aren't born anymore. Are we going too far down the scientific road?
No, I think that we have to propose, for instance, every pregnant woman have the opportunity to know what is a genetic status of the fetus. So why we cannot propose in France, but not in England and not in Great Britain? You cannot do an examination of the embryo when you have an embryo in vitro before you will put it back, because we know that 60% of the embryo are not correct. So for instance, this point must be changed by the bioethics law. I hope so, because we are not able to make the examination of the status of the embryo when we need it.
That is an important point. I do wish we could speak more. It's a fascinating topic, but we're going to have to leave it there. Mr. René Frydman, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for your invitation.